Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Some people are so obsessed with celebrities. It's like, get a life.
That famous person is not your actual friend. Why do you care so much about them?
Relationships between fans and celebrities have always had the potential to go a bit dark side. John Lennon was killed by a fan, though perhaps a better title for his killer, Mark David Chapman, is fan-turned-hater. As a Texan, I'm also reminded of how Selena was murdered by the president of her fan club. In fact, we can look all the way back to the 1800s to find records of fans turning on their favorite celebrity. Although this story doesn't end with a murder.
I would argue that one of the first recorded parasocial relationships to have been recorded is one with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like between fans and Doyle.
This is Marie Vigoureux, fellow podcaster who we met in the first episode of this season. She recently started listening to a podcast about the famous fictional detective Sherlock Holmes, which has also led her to reading all about the character's creator. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had quite a strong fan following in his time. That became even more apparent after he killed off his beloved protagonist in The Final Problem, a story in which Sherlock and his nemesis, Professor Moriarty, plummet off the Reichenbach Falls. When the story was published in the mystery magazine that originally housed the series, The Strand, fans got personal.
People wrote letters calling him like names, you know? They were very upset with him. So they felt like they knew him because they knew Sherlock Holmes, right? So, but I think it's easy to say, oh, parasocial relationships are bad, right? Or they're weird, or they're strange.
As Marie describes, fans did not like this turn of events and took it as a deeply personal affront. In fact, according to a BBC feature, quote, "The public reaction to the death was unlike anything previously seen for fictional events. More than 20,000 Strand readers canceled their subscriptions, outraged by Holmes's premature demise. The magazine barely survived. Its staff referred to Holmes' death as the dreadful event," end quote. Conan Doyle continued to get enough letters and comments from the readers that he eventually went back to occasionally writing Holmes mysteries, starting with The Hounds of Baskerville. All of this to say, it's nothing new to see fans acting as if they've been personally wronged by a celebrity, and acting on it. But modern fandom has new avenues that previous generations didn't have access to. Selena didn't have a TikTok presence where fans could have even more access to the singer. Conan Doyle had people sending letters, not badgering him on Instagram. But it's not just the access that's changed. It's the expectations around that access. It might seem intrusive to send a letter to someone's home address, but fans now have the option to easily send the same message via DM on a public social account. And this is where we're going today, into the dark side of modern fandom, and how that relates to parasociality. Let's stick with modern music fandom, since it's so rife with examples.
Fans do not simply enjoy an album, they are in love with the person who created the work. Fans follow the celebrity object of their affection on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and watch their every move. Fans join forums with other fans who all believe that the celebrity is communicating with them via a series of riddles and hidden messages, which sometimes they really are.
This is an excerpt from a blog post titled Chapel Roan Confronts the Sickness of Modern Fandom by Defector Media writer and podcaster Kelsey McKinney. Defector Media is a sports blog and media company, though they often cover topics well outside athletics. Kelsey wrote this piece in response to the backlash that Chapel Roan incurred after a TikTok post about bad fan behavior and how that impacted her life.
I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it. It doesn't mean that I like it. I don't want whatever the you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. I don't give a if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's weird. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior, okay?
Chapel's complaints aren't anything new, as Kelsey notes in her blog.
For as long as there have been stage doors, there have been people waiting outside of them. What's new is that today's fans aren't looking for a fleeting chance to feel close to an artist they love. They're seeking confirmation of the closeness they already assume exists.
I don't know if I completely buy this argument. I think there have always been people who assumed that closeness, but maybe more people in fandom have shifted towards this belief. We'll get to this a little later. Regardless, Kelsey, in her blog, posits that this change could be due to how we interact with the concept of fame.
What's interesting and complicated about all of this is that social media at large has transformed the concept of fame into something that anyone could have at any moment, and that everyone should be pursuing. Fame has never been closer to all of us. One viral video, one little song you make up, and your life could change.
This idea really stuck with me. Maybe the intense entitlement of modern fandom isn't just because social media gives them extra access to stars. Maybe it's because fame itself feels so much more accessible and, as a result, desirable to the masses. More and more people thinking, I could be just as famous as this celebrity, and I would love to get all this attention. Therefore, the stars should want my attention. Whatever the reasons, we're taking for granted the idea that parasociality has actually grown in intensity with the advent of social media. But I'm a scientist by training. I know better than to take any argument based solely on vibes. The good news is, people are studying this. So how do we study parasociality? A good first step would be to create a measure for celebrity worship, like a scale or index. Thankfully, that work has been done for us. In 2002, Lynn McCrutcheon, editor of the North American Journal of Psychology, and her colleagues published a paper introducing a new celebrity attitude scale. The scale, originally 17 items and since revised to 23, quantifies how participants feel about favorite celebrities. I reached out to Lynn to find out how she became interested in the topic of celebrity worship and its correlate, parasociality. Lynn wasn't available to record an interview, but we have her written responses, which are read here by podcast editor Anna Funk.
When JFK Jr. died, I saw that there was a tremendous amount of media attention paid to his demise, way out of proportion to his meager accomplishments. True, he was a lawyer and editor of a magazine, but these achievements stemmed in large part to the fact that he was a rich kid. I began to wonder why we Americans pay so much attention to famous people.
And to be fair, Lynn doesn't think this is an American phenomenon, or even a modern one.
Later, I found that celebrity worship is common in other countries as well. 100 years ago, celebrities were often heroes, that is, people who had actually accomplished something noteworthy. This was before radio, TV, and social media popularized people who can sing and act.
I also asked Lynn if she thinks celebrity worship and parasociality is disproportionately found in younger generations.
The research on this is somewhat sparse, but it tends to show that young folks score high on the CAS, and that scores decline slightly as young folks mature.
CAS, in this case, is Lynn's celebrity attitude scale. I should also mention that the CAS, or CAS, isn't like a BuzzFeed quiz that tells you, you're a 68% celebrity worshiper. It's a series of 23 statements to which participants respond on a 5-point scale, between strongly agree, 5, and strongly disagree, 1. These scores are then tallied up along 3 different aspects. Here's how Lynn described it in her 2021 paper titled, Is Celebrity Worship Increasing Over Time?
The first of the 3 subscales addresses an entertainment social factor. On this level, people are attracted to their favorite celebrity because the celebrity provides entertainment and a vehicle for making contact with friends. A sample item is, quote, my friends and I like to discuss what my favorite celebrity has done, end quote. The intense personal level is more problematic and reveals an intense attraction to celebrities that has obvious maladaptive properties. A sample item is, quote, I have frequent thoughts about my favorite celebrity, even when I don't want to, end quote. The third level, borderline pathological, is considered to be the most problematic, as illustrated in this sample item. Quote, I often feel compelled to learn the habits of my favorite celebrity, end quote.
As the title of the paper might give away, the study examined whether celebrity worship is increasing over time. They found that it is, and they saw a small rise in the CAS scores over the 20-year period in the U.S. I asked Lynn whether she expected the trend would continue.
I see that trend continuing, possibly because celebrities have made themselves more accessible to fans through social media.
The 20-year increase is an especially notable effect when you look at the first 5 studies included in the analysis, which spanned from 2001 to 2012, as compared to the last 5 studies that were conducted in 2021. The average of the 2 CAS measures, called intense personal and borderline pathological, increased by an order of magnitude between those 2 time points, while the entertainment social measure more than doubled. In their discussion, the authors argue that social media and the increasing availability of celebrities online are likely at least partly to blame. For example, Instagram has led to unprecedented access to the lives of the famous, even if that access is a highly curated front. Now, all this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Plenty of fans can feel a parasocial connection without negative consequences to their lives. However,
celebrity worship is associated with a range of maladaptive correlates, including anxiety and depression, neuroticism, narcissism, materialistic values, obsessive thoughts, loneliness, dissociation, poor interpersonal skills, and disordered eating.
Yeesh. In fact, my guest from episode 2 this season, Dr. Alima Tu, mentioned loneliness as an ongoing issue with those who rely more and more on online parasocial bonds rather than building in-person networks and community. We were talking about how folks online or at conventions can overshare or trauma dump because they feel such a strong connection with a celebrity that they don't recognize the social mores around sharing personal stories with strangers and get too deep too fast.
That speaks to more the loneliness I think some people feel. Like chronic loneliness kind of really changes the way you're interacting with people. People who are chronically lonely tend to really crave social interaction and also do things that push other people away because they're so desperate for it. They're so crave. They might do stuff like that.
Right.
And how do you help someone like that? They need a lot of like feedback that like this is pushing people away. Don't do that. Here's another way that you can do that. And on the flip side, this probably celebrity, like, who's going to help that person?
Lynn and her colleague, Mara Araguete, agree with his assessment.
The research findings support the explanation that celebrity worship serves as a compensation for something that the worshiper lacks, such as a stable identity, an empty or confused sense of self, or meaningful interpersonal relationships.
Woof. Here's Ali again.
I think there's a massive need for connection, and it's very difficult to have in-person connections with people. There's less after school. I don't think the problem is phones. I think there's it's kind of a correlation. There's been trends for a very long time in the United States towards more suburban living, to less community resources, to less like groups and clubs and after school activities, but also after work activities. There aren't many community gathering points.
Like third spaces.
Yeah, so like people are very connected to their close friends and family. And then people have these like online connections to, you know, your Reddits, to whatever you're interested in. But we don't have as many. Third spaces are in decline, especially in lower income environments. People aren't building them. So that's happening. And also just like weak connections to the people you live around.
Of course, there could be a myriad of causes for the uptick in interest towards stars' private lives, parasocial bonds, and celebrity worship. One we haven't discussed yet is that advertisers know that celebrity sells and are constantly upping their game, actively trying to foster parasocial connections, trying to get more fans to identify with a particular famous person to buy their widget. It's capitalism 101. I mean, YouTubers sell merch with their catchphrases printed on them. Podcasters directly read ads on their shows, sharing personal stories of why you should try fill-in-the-blank mattress company. Even the A-list celebrities themselves are leaning in. Ryan Reynolds, George Clooney, and Matthew McConaughey all launched alcohol brands to at least partially cash in on the perception of their suave personalities. The personal nature of social media has fundamentally shaped our view of celebrities themselves. And this is something my generation, the millennials, have seen change in our lifetime alongside the rise of the internet. Here's how August Hotel band members Ryan Lammers and Cale Singleton put it.
I mean, I feel like the weird thing is we didn't have experience with it before the internet.
Yeah, not
like all of
really,
my time in music has been with the like even back in middle school, the band I was in at the time would post videos on YouTube and get comments from randos just like shitting on a bunch of 13-year-olds.
Oh
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Why do you think that's okay?
I also think about like I was talking to a friend of mine at work like maybe 2 weeks ago actually about this, because we were talking about how first of all, to answer your question, I think it's made it so much easier for those relationships to form and has made it so much worse for the artist specifically. Because like now you're expected, it's like let everyone into your lives all the time.
Right.
And it's like,
have
but
a bathroom thought, record it.
Yeah, but I don't want to. It doesn't matter what you want. Like they need it right now. But I was also talking about how because we were talking about how like we're like, remember when like bands like U2 were this like mythical, like enormously powerful like like beings that just like appeared and disappeared. Like it was, there was so much like mysticism around bands and around like these classic, like it's like these unattainable, like godlike figures. And then, you know, you see them on Instagram and they're like, I'm gardening today. Like it just, the facade is gone completely. And how like that used to be that we would like deify these artists like so intensely. And then after like, you know, like I said, after like Instagram and like especially TikTok too came around, it's just like, it's gone.
And all of this was put into hyperdrive during early COVID-19 and our initial lockdown attempts. Everyone trapped at home, desperately doom scrolling and trying to distract ourselves from the world we couldn't control. In fact, researcher Shakti Swaminathan at Mount Carmel College conducted a study on exactly this, titled The Show Must Go On, a study on celebrity worship during COVID-19. Shakti looked at how the COVID-19 pandemic played a role in influencing celebrity worship. According to the paper,
the chief findings of the study are that the pandemic has exposed the realness and vulnerability of celebs, and this has allowed fans to relate to the stars better. This study shows that though fans are aware of possible superficiality and hypocrisy of the privileged lives of their favorite stars, it doesn't stop them from viewing the posts as entertaining and welcome it as a distraction, even during a period of acute crisis. Celebrity culture has not waned. As long as there are fans, it is here to stay.
Which is wild to think when I remember the terrible COVID celebrity rendition of John Lennon's Imagine.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
Do you remember seeing and hating that terrible supercut of celebrities awkwardly singing lines from the famous song while presumably holed up in their palatial homes? I mean, even general news outlets like The Guardian and NBC News knew how terrible it was, calling it peak cringe and in poor taste. But despite famously bad moves like the Imagine video, the early COVID-19 period led to a measurable increase in celebrity worship and its accompanying parasociality. Is that because our mental health was at an all-time low and we were looking for a pick-me-up? Or are we just seeing an intensification of the existing trend that Lynn and Mara found in their research? The truth is, I don't think we really know. Nor do we necessarily know where these changes overall might be leading. As Lynn said in her 2021 paper,
the outcome of the resulting parasocial relationship with celebrities is unclear. Do parasocial relationships with celebrities offer social support to vulnerable fans? Or do they result in greater deficiencies because the fan acquires a new range of needs associated with the adoration of celebrity life? For instance, fame, wealth, thin body, or perfect hair, skin, and teeth. Future research should endeavor to investigate the causal aspects of celebrity worship on mental health.
Next time on In Defense of Fandom. We've talked about parasocial relationships as a one-way street, but can that ever change? Is there a way for a parasocial bond to become just a regular friendship? What would that even look like? We'll hear a few examples of how parasocial relationships became something more reciprocal, and whether it's likely to be a rare event or something that can actually be more commonplace. Now, for the show's credits. Editorial support was provided by Dr. Anna Funk. Music was composed and performed by Chris Scott, with some selections by August Hotel. Cover art was designed by Liz Hand. Thanks also to Marissa Croft, Sherry Tucci, and Mike Tran for lending their voices in this episode. In Defense of Fandom is part of the Geekscape Podcast Network. If you like the show, giving us a review on Apple Podcasts is a great way to help support this work and help even more listeners discover us. Your support is deeply appreciated.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.